So if I can move on from filmmaking, I left filmmaking predominantly because I worked in the dark. I went to work in the dark, I worked in the dark, and I came home in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked like a kind of a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
And plus it was round the clock,
Mm-hmm.
literally 12 hours a day. We were under huge pressure to get this stuff out.
Yeah.
And it pretty much burnt me out.
Mm-hmm.
I made a lot of money from it. Well, not a lot of money, but I made pretty good money.
Mm-hmm.
And I set in my mind the idea that I would go and use that money and go to Greece.
Was this the first of your outside of the local Europe travels?
No. I'd already actually been in Greece when I was at college.
Okay.
And I fell in love with the Greek islands, or those that at that time that I knew, when it was the old Mediterranean. And I think that's a subject which would be fun to talk about.
Okay.
But basically,
I've never been, as you know.
well, when I say the old Mediterranean, I mean the countries of the Mediterranean before tourism.
Okay.
So in the early 60s, when there really weren't yet tourism, there weren't huge hotels, there weren't mass travel, there were package tours didn't exist.
And McDonald's.
Yeah, and McDonald's didn't exist. Well, it did, but it wasn't, wasn't particularly around. The countries of the Mediterranean, Spain, Italy, and France, and Greece and Turkey, very much on the northern edge of the Mediterranean, were very much unchanged for the past several hundreds of years.
Well, they must have had certain modern things, right? Like medicine and.
Well, they did, but they were fundamentally poor because it was an agrarian economy.
Okay.
Greece has never really produced very much in the way of anything that anybody wants to buy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of olive trees and certain amounts of lemons and various other things, but basically Greece has been struggling, as most of the southern Mediterranean countries have struggled,
Mm-hmm.
to get an income.
Mm-hmm.
And so the people were dependent upon fishing
Mm-hmm.
and local agriculture.
Okay.
And I just happened to arrive in the early 60s on an island called Andros, not very far from Athens, but a world removed, and a world which was still full of basically fishing village, where nearly all the men involved in the village were fishermen who would go out and work all night pulling nets.
Is that a nighttime job?
That was a nighttime job.
Okay.
And
Because of dawn and dusk, that's when the fish spawn.
yeah,
or
well,
something?
the fish, and the Greeks also have these things called carbide lamps,
Okay.
which are big lamps that shine during the night, and fish get attracted to them.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So there's carbide fishing, and then there's net fishing. So the nets will be laid out, and then you basically anchor or you just drift, and in the morning you pull the nets in.
Mm-hmm.
And in those days, there was still plenty of fish, big fish. And so the entire village could live off the fish, or a few fish could be exported
Mm-hmm.
to other parts of the island. But basically, it's a self-contained agrarian economy.
Economy aside, I mean, there's something that sounds really very nice and simple about that,
It was
which
very simple.
maybe what attracts people to go visit.
Yeah, I think that was the amazing thing. Of course, I went there in good weather, and to be truthful, the Mediterranean is good. If you want good weather, you go there for 6 months. Start in the spring, and by October, normally storms are coming in, and the whole environment changes. but I had already, in a sense, fallen in love with a simple life, which was a complete opposite to the way in which I lived in London.